Good morning and welcome back to the Turtle Wins the Race Home-Based Business Podcast. My name is Kara Buntin and I've had a home-based business since 1999. So that's what we talk about here. And today I want to talk about marketing and numbers. So there will be math involved. Well, not really, but there will be numbers involved. And if you just hate that, I'm sorry. But if you're going to run a business, you have to kind of pay attention to numbers at some point. Unfortunately, sometimes, depending on your mental energy, which mine really right now is very low because it's first thing in the morning and I don't have enough caffeine in me. Anyway, I have three things I want to touch on today. Okay, the first thing, and these are all things that I've written down to think about. The first thing is if you're running a business, you need to think, how do you make your money? Okay, and that might seem like an obvious question. And you're thinking, what a stupid thing to ask. I make my money by making jewelry. No, you don't make your money by making jewelry. You make your money by selling jewelry. There's a difference. It's the same. I mentioned this before somewhere. It's like when people go to the store and they come back and say, look how much I saved because I got all this stuff on sale. And no, they didn't save anything. They spent a lot. They didn't save anything, okay? You didn't save any money if you went shopping and came back with merchandise. You spent, you didn't save. Making isn't selling. And I think that's the piece, it's a piece, it's not the piece. That's a piece that a lot of creatives who have creative hand-based businesses or product-based businesses kind of miss out on. Because a lot of things, we make the things that we like, and that's great. That makes you an artist. Okay, that's fantastic. But that doesn't make you a marketer. It doesn't make you someone who earns a living from your art. Okay. And you might, definitely those two things do intersect. But you have to pay attention to how do you make your money. And that's the part that nobody likes. Nobody likes to pay attention to that. Nobody likes the selling part. It's gross. It feels nasty. It feels like you're trying to, sneak attack people when you start selling to them. But the fact is that it's two separate things. So when you are planning out your business, when you're looking at your business as a whole, and you're saying, well, this is the thing that I sell the most of, but I hate making it. But I sell the most of, that's how I make my money. I sell that, but I don't like making it. I would never use it myself. I would never wear it myself. Okay. You have to decide for yourself if you want to keep doing that. But if you don't, and that's a legitimate decision also, I just think of the succulents. Oh my God. The gum paste succulents are my kryptonite. And it's a long story. I've told this story before, but I used to make these little cupcake toppers, gum paste succulents. They were teeny tiny. They were cute. They were real cute. And I made so many of them that whenever I got an order, I would just basically start crying. It was terrible. I was so tired of making them. I would spend like 2 hours every day making gum paste succulents. But I was making money on them and I was selling a lot of them. But, eventually it was at the point where other people had started copying them. They were coming into the market. They were selling them for cheaper. There were a lot of things starting to happen with the gum paste succulent market. And it got to the point where I actually went and looked at the numbers. And I made a lot of money on them. But for the amount of money that I was probably going to be able to make if I continued to make them based on more competition and lower prices, it wasn't worth it to me. And just the fact that it sucked the joy out of my soul every time I saw an order for them. So yeah, sometimes you will decide that you don't want to make that thing even though it makes you money. But look at the numbers first. Okay, don't just cut something out without looking at the numbers and saying, can I replace that income? And I'm very big on not eliminating something unless I can replace that income with something else. Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't, and so you have to make decisions based on that. But look at the numbers, not the feelings. Okay, but sometimes the feelings do count. So nothing is absolute. Okay, the answer to everything is it depends. The answer to everything is it depends. But what I'm just pointing out is that making isn't selling, and you have to pay attention to what's actually selling and not just to what you like making, because you're not going to make money just making things. You have to sell it too. That's how you make your money. You sell things. Okay. And yeah, I mean, people I don't like it. I don't like selling things. I don't like being the salesperson. I don't think anybody does. Some people might. I do not enjoy that, but you have to do it. Okay. So how do you make your money? Making isn't selling. That's the first point. The second point, I'm going to refer to this book, Biology, which is an excellent book because it talks about neuromarketing, and it actually looks at, this is what people say, this is what they actually do. Okay. And basically what people say is often the polar opposite of what they actually do, or what their brains are doing as they're saying it. It's very interesting. And they actually do hook people up to machines to see what their brains are doing. And I gave this book to my husband to read, and he was over there laughing. It's a very easy read. It's not super scientific with lots of, stats and that kind of stuff. It's an easy read. So like a social read, right? And you can talk about it. But it's interesting to see that there are a lot of studies that go on with marketing that just ask people, what would you do? Which one do you like better? But then when you actually go and put those things into place, that's not what people do. They do something completely different, because asking someone, what do you think, is different than watching what they do, especially if they know that they're being watched. And that's the problem with a lot of there's a couple of big, what do they call it? Behavioral economists, who are people always, this one's the best, he's the best, he's so great. Well, it turns out that a lot of them have been involved recently in like Harvard University scandals where they were falsifying data, they were changing things, it's a big mess. But it also just shows that a lot of their experiments, and I did have, when I was reading these books years ago when everybody was just gushing over this one guy who just has a few books about this kind of stuff. And all of his studies were done with college students who were either his students, or they knew he was a professor, or they knew that the study was being run by a professor, but they're basically just asking college students, which one of these would you buy? College students don't have any money. They wouldn't buy anything because they're broke. And also, they knew that it was a study that was being done by a professor, and so you want to look good and you want to give the right answer. This is not normal behavior. This is not the kind of behavior that you're going to get from an average person in an average situation at the average grocery store when they're out actually buying things. So you have to be really careful when you rely on studies that say this is what people say they will do, because they don't do that. And one of the examples my husband was laughing at was and I'll put the link to this book in the description of this video because it's totally worth getting. It's very worthwhile to read. But one of the examples he was laughing at was the ringtone, like that little Nokia ringtone that everybody knows. And he said that people were asked by the scientists, how do you like your phone? They're like, I love my phone. I love it. But then when they played that little Nokia ringtone for them, the areas of their brain that register fear, disgust, anxiety, they lit up. They heard that ringtone and their brains went crazy with just bad reactions. But they're saying, oh, I love my phone. Okay. I think that's a clear, we all understand why your brain would go crazy when you hear that ringtone, because oh God, now I have to deal with somebody, I have to answer questions, and I might have to do work. But people are like, I love it. I love it. No, they don't. They don't. And I think recently they've said that dopamine is the chemical that gets released when you the doom scrolling, you're just doom scrolling. Dopamine was always referred to as kind of the love drug, like it gave you a pleasant sensation in your brain. But now they're saying it's more like an addiction drug. Like it has an addictive quality to it, where it's not necessarily that you love what you're doing. You really might hate it, but your brain is saying keep going. You're right. So that's not good. But I think you need to pay attention to the numbers. This is where I'm going with this. You need to pay attention to the data and the numbers, not the comments. And I think we've all had the experience where somebody, or it's just one or two, or you would ask, people say, ask your audience a question. And so you ask them the question, which one of these would you buy? Would you like to buy this one if I made it? Everybody says, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I would definitely buy it. So you make that thing and you don't sell a thing. You don't sell any of them. That's because people will not necessarily do what they say they're going to do. And it's not that they're lying. They genuinely believe that they will do it or that they love their phone, but their brains are saying something different. And when people, this is the problem that I have with many studies and with many data points that people, yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot of stuff in the marketing world and e-commerce in general that is just BS because people don't actually have the studies. It's very difficult to get a clean, think about it, to get a clean e-commerce buying study. Because if people know that they're being watched, they behave differently. So if you say to people, I would like to put this tracker on your computer to watch your activities, and we're going to use it for our scientific study, even if they know that their personal identifiers are not going to be attached to that, they're still going to behave differently. Even if they know that it just is going to change how they behave, right? So unless someone doesn't know, if they have no idea that they're being watched, that's when you can believe their behavior, okay? But if they know that they're taking part in any kind of a study, it's not going to be the same. And then a lot of studies that are done claim to look at one thing, but they're really looking at something else. And the whole thing about charm pricing is based on a few, this is my pet peeve, oh my God. It's based, and charm pricing is when you end things like in 95 cents, 99 cents. That's all based on a few studies that were not even buying studies. It was asking people, what would you do? Or it was asking people, what is the price of this? And they had showed you the price 20 minutes before. That's a memory study. That's not a buying study, right? That's just saying, what's the price? Can you remember this number? That's basically what, can you remember this number? So all that proves, if you actually read the studies, instead of just reading the summary that somebody has posted 20 different times on Google that has been repeated over and over and over until the point where they've lost all the details. Go back and read the actual study. You will see that it doesn't test a damn thing about buying anything. So anyway, pay attention to the numbers, not the comments, and go buy this book. And I'll put the link in the description. Okay. And here's my little notebook to remind me what else. The third thing, if you are looking at your marketing, okay, where is your customer hub? Okay, where do you not just people who might buy, where are your customers, right? Where do you have a place online where your customers can find you? Where would they go to find you? Usually it should be your website. It should be that you have a website where people can Google that. They can just type that into search engines. I don't even want to say Google because Google's so messed up right now. They can just type your name into the search bar and your website should come up. Okay, that should be your customer hub. A lot of people will use something else. A lot of people say, well, all my customers are on Instagram, all my customers are on TikTok, all my customers are on Facebook. That's fine, but you need to know where your customer hub is. And honestly, I would not build a customer hub deliberately. I would not deliberately build one. I would not deliberately build a customer hub on a platform that someone else owned. It's too risky. And I just mentioned Google, and they just did this giant update a few months ago. It was actually longer than that. It was about 5 months ago. They started these updates. These updates have been rolling out like one after another. And they basically wiped out the traffic of a lot of people who were relying on Google for traffic. It was just like their whole business plan was Google for traffic, and that's it. So Google comes along and basically wipes that out, and they did it deliberately. This is the thing. It's like now all these leaks have come out. There's all kinds of stuff going on with Google. But Google actually did that deliberately for a few reasons, none of which make any sense to me. But these people now don't have a customer hub because they built their business around someone else's platform, okay? If you have a website and a mailing list, then you can build a business. Okay, you can build a customer hub because you own the website, you own the mailing list. And a lot of people don't want to do emails. It's not that big a deal. It's not hard. It's just you have to remember to do it. I forget to do it sometimes. But you have to, yeah, I actually forget. I have 3 mailing lists I'm supposed to be sending out. I forget to do them all the time. I guess I should do that today. But yeah, you have to remember to do it. But having a website, okay, let's say somebody forced me to say, what are the pieces of a business that you should use, right? I would not be choosing social media to build anything. Maybe to get some signups, but that would not be my primary focus of I'm going to build a Facebook group and that's going to be where my business lives. No, I'm going to get a website. I'm going to get a mailing list. And I probably will drive traffic to it from different places, but that's not going to be my hub. That's not going to be the main focus, is one of these other places that could get shut down tomorrow. For people who have, and this has happened a lot in the last week, just in 1 week, I know of 3 people who Etsy has basically shut their shops for no reason because none of them were doing anything wrong. I know what they sell. And it's just all done by computers now. It's done by bots. Everybody's in love with machine learning, even though machine learning is really stupid and doesn't actually think. It's just checking off boxes and shutting shops down. But it's, you have to build a business that you control. Okay, you can control your website, you can control your email list. And then I would use the other platforms to drive traffic to those 2 places, but I would not build a business on YouTube. I wouldn't build a business on Facebook. I certainly wouldn't build a business on TikTok. And they're talking now about TikTok has to be sold and it's a whole political thing. But I see on the news people protesting, my business is on TikTok. And I'm like, well, that is your mistake. Okay. What's going to happen if they close down TikTok? Everyone will just move to Instagram. It's not that big a deal. They should be able to move over. But what happens if they close Instagram? What happens if Facebook, once again, has some kind of an update that they did like 5 years ago, where all of a sudden your business pages are just not seen and it's all groups now? What happens if they wipe out the groups? There's all kinds of things that could happen that you have absolutely no control over. Your customer hub should be your website and your email list. Those are the 2 things. That's it. Okay. And yeah, we were having this conversation in my eShop group because I made the comment, I apologize for this. I made the comment that you don't really need a website if you're selling digital, but I was thinking in terms of the sales tax, right? Because a lot of the platforms will now collect sales tax for you. And that's what I meant. Okay. But it threw people off because, like I said, website, email lists, those are the basic building blocks. But yeah, you need a website, you need an email list. And after this past week of Etsy shutting all these shops down and absolutely no recourse, people have no recourse. It just shows me more that you do need those 2 things. Website, email list, go get them. Okay. So basically, that's my marketing message. Get a website, get an email list. Start that's your basics. Okay. Identify how do you make your money. It's because making isn't selling. You need to sell things. You don't need to make it. You have to make it, but not just to make it. And pay attention to the numbers, not the comments, because that will inform what you're making to sell. Okay. And if you want to argue with me about, I only want to sell what I like making, that's fine. Put it in the comments. That's fine, because I see the point of that. And I see that sometimes, like with the succulents, you have to make decisions based on what you enjoy doing as well. But nobody likes their job all the time. Nobody who goes to an office likes their job all the time. Nobody who works for themselves likes their job all the time. And I think the idea that you have to only make the things that you like is really limiting if you're also trying to sell it. If you want to make only the things that you like, that's fantastic. And if you can make a full-time income doing that, that's even better. But realistically, most people are going to have to do some things that they don't like doing as much as the things that they really love doing, because that's life. That's just called being a person. It's called earning a living. It's not that complicated. All right, so give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you next week.